Hello, I welcome you all to the new academic session for grade 10. We are going to start from chemistry chapter, that is chemical reaction and equation. Now this chapter is very important as the whatever content or whatever reactions you are going to study in this chapter, or the basics of chemical reaction and basics of chemical changes you are going to see in this chapter will be helpful to understand next upcoming chapters like acids, bases, salts, metals, non-metals and all other reactions from chemistry. So let's start. Let's begin with the explanation. So to understand chemical reaction and equation, we need to understand first what are chemical changes and physical changes. So you have studied chemical changes and physical changes in grade 9 in detail. But here we are going to discuss the same points with some examples. Now let's take an example. This is simple paper, you can see, which we use for writing, for printing, for many purposes. Now if I fold this paper, what kind of change you observe here? Very correct. The kind of change you observe here is change in size. Otherwise there is no any change. Still I open the paper, the paper becomes with the same size. But if I cut this paper, okay, if I tear this paper, if I cut this paper, again what is changing? Now not only size but shape of the paper is also changing. Again shape and size. These are the physical properties of this material. So shape and size of the material is changing. Again, if I burn the paper, so what will happen? Let's see. Now you can see here, while burning, you can see this flame, some ash is falling, okay, and some gas is evolved. Temperature is not the same, again temperature is changing. So over and all, many changes we are observing here at the same time. And this is ash. So this teared paper, cut paper, still you can use it as paper for writing. Still you can use it as a paper. Only shape and size, that are physical properties, have changed. But here not only physical property, size is changed, shape of paper is changed. With that, chemically also, now this is ash. This ash, we can't use it as a paper again. So here not only physical but chemical property of the substance is changed. So let's take some more examples to understand with the activity. Okay, so I have explained first activity, that is burning of paper. So we understood here that burning of paper is a chemical change. Next example is boiling milk. Now boiling itself is a physical change, where again the state of matter changes from liquid to gas, temperature is changing. So here only physical properties are changing. Milk is still milk. We are using that milk as a milk, and therefore boiling milk is a physical change. Melting of ice, again this is very common example of physical change. Ice turns into water, but still it is H2O. No any chemical change is occurring. So the next example we are going to observe is baking soda added to citric acid. Now citric acid is lemon juice, or we can get the granules of citric acid at your home. So you can perform this experiment in your house, in your kitchen. So let's start the example. This is sample of baking soda and this is sample of citric acid. So when I add citric acid in baking soda, you can see the effervescence, bubbles, production of gas. If I touch this test tube, the temperature is lowered down, okay, and the state of matter is also changing. Citric acid granules were solid in nature. This baking soda is again solid in nature, and now after adding here, what happened? the salt is formed which is aqueous in nature. So state of matter is also changing, and therefore hold this example, hold this experiment, you will understand that baking soda when added to citric acid changes chemically. Citric acid also changes chemically, and therefore it is a chemical change. Here tarnished copper. Okay, now you have observed some spots, green colored, black colored spots on copper vessel. So why that spots? Whenever we wash it, that spots are removed. But again after some days we can observe the same spots on the copper vessel. Why? Because the formation of copper carbonate. When copper reacts with moist air, it changes its property and it forms new substance, and therefore tarnished copper is good example of chemical change. Now photosynthesis, we all know, we have studied photosynthesis in detail. So what is photosynthesis? When plants use carbon dioxide and water in presence of sunlight, they convert it into totally new substance, that is glucose, and oxygen is evolved during the reaction. With that, water is also evolved during the reaction in the form of vapors. So this is the whole photosynthesis reaction, where one carbon compound is turned into 6 carbon compound with the help of water and sunlight. So whole new substance, whole new reaction we are observing here, and that's why photosynthesis is again an example of chemical change. So the next example is respiration. What happens in respiration? We break down glucose to obtain energy. So with the help of oxygen which we respire, which we inhale, it will get transported to cell. Inside cell, what happens? Glucose is decomposed, or glucose is broken down into carbon, water and energy. So carbon is released in exhalation, water is also released in exhalation in small amount, and therefore this whole example is of chemical change. Now let's see next example, KMnO4 plus water. Now what is this KMnO4? It is potassium permanganate, which is somewhat purple in color. So when I add water in it, what happens? Let's observe. Okay, so you can observe here, potassium permanganate when added to water, color of water is changing. Water is colorless, but now it became pink or violet or purple in color. So dependent on the concentration of KMnO4, the color also changes. So here you can observe that there is no any new substance formed. This is aqueous solution of KMnO4, and therefore this is nothing but good example of physical change, because no new substance is formed, only KMnO4 is dissolving in water. Okay, so the next example is hydrochloric acid added to iron. Now in your textbook there is activity 1.2. Now in that activity it is told that zinc granules and sulfuric acid. So there they have given example of zinc granules and sulfuric acid. Same example we are going to find here, we are going to observe here, but in different form. Instead of zinc, we are using iron filings, and instead of sulfuric acid, we are going to use hydrochloric acid. Okay, so when I add hydrochloric acid in iron, we are going to observe some changes. And what are that changes? Let's observe. Okay, bad smell, some amount of gas is evolved in this reaction. Okay, now we will observe one more thing. You can see bubbles are formed. Okay, now which gas is actually evolved in this reaction? To observe that, we need to do one more activity. Okay, So you can see continuously bubbles are formed here. Suppose if I trap this gas, you will hear a pop sound. Okay, you will hear a pop sound when I bring this burning matchstick in front of the test tube. Okay, so you can see continuously bubbles are formed, and this is again a reaction where hydrochloric acid is added to iron. Now what happened here? When hydrochloric acid is added to iron, iron will change its place and it will form a salt, that is iron chloride, and hydrogen gas will liberate. So these bubbles will be of hydrogen gas that you have found. Okay, so the effervescence is of hydrogen gas. Then next example is sodium hydroxide added to hydrochloric acid. Now I have made a aqueous solution of sodium hydroxide. So I am taking bit of sodium hydroxide here and hydrochloric acid again. Okay, now you will not find any such change here because both are colorless solutions. But when sodium hydroxide and hydrochloric acid reacts with each other, it becomes neutral solution. It becomes neutral solution. Okay, now I have one indicator with me. So we will see what happens, how to understand actually what is happening. So this is NaOH solution. Okay, so when I add this NaOH solution and KMnO4, so you can see there is pink color, okay, to KMnO4. So KMnO4 acts as an indicator here which gives pink color to NaOH solution. And when I add HCl to this, the color disappears. See, the color becomes, so something is changing, something, see, you can understand what I am trying to show you. It will disappear after some time. Okay, so what is happening, how you understood that reaction has happened? So we have used one indicator here where NaOH was showing some pink color KMnO4 solution, and then when we added acid, it turned green and then colorless. Okay, so when colors are changed, when two substances are mixed, here we can understand that some reaction is happening, and therefore this is a good example of chemical change. So by these examples you have understood that what is chemical change and physical change. So in chemical changes, everywhere you have found that there is formation of new substance. Ash is formed. Then when candle is burning, some gases are formed. When iron reacts with hydrochloric acid, new substance, that is iron chloride, is formed. When carbon dioxide and water reacts with each other in the reaction of photosynthesis, new substance, that is glucose, is formed. So everywhere there is new substance with new set of properties is formed. Then there is rearrangement of ions. Okay, the same ions like HCl, H plus Cl minus, Fe plus, all these ions got rearranged and we got iron chloride and hydrogen gas. Chemical as well as physical properties are changed. So not only substance is changed into new substance, but with that, suppose that substance is solid in nature, it turned to aqueous or liquid, or suppose that substance is gaseous in nature. Now in the reaction of photosynthesis, you can understand carbon dioxide is gaseous in nature. It is absorbed in the plant through stomata. Water is in the form of droplets in soil. It is absorbed by roots. When they combine in leaves, in chlorophyll, they turn into new substance, that is glucose. And that substance again in aqueous nature. Oxygen is evolved, that is gaseous in nature. So not only chemical but physical properties are also changing during chemical change. And in physical change, yes, there is no new substance formed. KMnO4 is still KMnO4. After melting of ice, the material is still water. After cutting paper, only shape and size is changed, but paper is still paper. Therefore, no new substance is formed. Okay, and then the next point is change in physical properties that we have discussed. So here you have understood briefly about chemical change and physical change. But during these experiments, we have observed one more thing. There were so many changes happening, whether it is physical change or chemical change. There were so many different changes were happening, and that changes we can conclude in 4 main changes. That is change in state of matter. Yes, baking soda was solid in nature, but after the change what happened? It became aqueous. Okay. Change in color. Yes, here you have observed now which reaction I have showed, NaOH and HCl. You have seen, you have observed different colors during the reaction. Evolution of gas. Yes, when I added HCl to iron or citric acid to baking soda, you have observed evolution of gas. Now in citric acid baking soda reaction, it was carbon dioxide, where in hydrochloric acid and iron reaction, it was hydrogen gas. So evolution of gas is one of the major indicator of the reaction or the change, chemical change is occurring. The next and the last example is change in temperature. As we know that, for example, here now for this change in temperature and to observe all these changes in one reaction, we can take one example of reaction. Let's take an example of one more chemical reaction, that is magnesium. When reacts with oxygen in presence of heat, we have to burn magnesium. It catches fire and turns into magnesium oxide. Now this is very simple reaction you can observe here. Okay. So magnesium is solid. I am just explaining you how all these changes you can observe in a reaction. Now magnesium is solid. Okay. Oxygen is gaseous. And MgO, which is, again we get solid in nature. Okay. Now magnesium, color of magnesium is somewhat grey or silvery white. Okay. And oxygen is colorless gas. But magnesium oxide is white powder. So here you can see that the color is changed totally. The state of matter is changed totally. Now during this reaction, you can see some gases. Okay. Now when you can see that gases, if you have not rubbed the magnesium ribbon properly with sandpaper, you have to rub it, you have to clean it. Why? Because it may contain magnesium oxide or magnesium carbonate residues on it. So if you have not rubbed it properly, if there are residues, then magnesium carbonate will decompose and you can find some gases during the burning. Okay, so evolution of gas is also observed, and then change in temperature. So while burning, here also we have seen different burning reactions. So while burning, temperature is changing, color is changing. So many changes you observe during burning reactions. So chemical changes can be understood or can be identified if all these changes are occurring. Physical changes, also these changes will happen in physical change. Color will change, state of matter will change, temperature will change, but there will not be any evolution of gas. So physical change and chemical change will be separated by evolution of gas. If there is effervescence, if there is evolution of gas, then you can understand that there is the chemical change occurring. Okay. Now whenever there is a chemical change, there is chemical reaction. Okay, and to represent chemical reaction we need to have chemical equation. Now we will understand all these things in next session. But before that, you can go to your in-text questions, where the first question is why we rub magnesium ribbon. So why we rub magnesium ribbon? The answer is to clean the ribbon, to remove all the residues from the magnesium ribbon, as it contains magnesium oxide as well as magnesium carbonate. Because if magnesium ribbon is open, it will react with atmospheric gases, moist air, and therefore new substances form. Okay, because metal tend to react very easily with oxygen, and therefore these kind of residues we find on magnesium ribbon. So to remove that, we need to rub it with sandpaper. We need to clean it with sandpaper before using. Okay, so I hope you have understood the whole point here. So next point we'll discuss in next video. Till then, bye bye.